Yo guys, what's up? This is Harry Talks Movies and TV, and this was my review for episode 4 of WandaVision, and I have a few things to talk about in this review. I've got a few things I need to say about this episode, and I'm going to start with how the episode starts, which I loved the opening sequence, which is when everyone came back from the snap, and Monica came back in the hospital, Monica being Geraldine, who in the last episode got exposed by Wanda when she said Pietro was killed by Ultron, and that sent Wanda off. But anyway, the first opening of episode 4 was Monica in the hospital getting snapped back, and she didn't know. She thought she fell asleep, and it really shows the chaos of what happened in the beginning, and like what happened in the snap, what happened after Hulk snapped. In Far From Home, it was played off as a joke. And it was just, yeah, that's funny. But now we're actually seeing the real ramifications of it, which I thought was great. I thought it was a great opening, and it was really scary to see like all these people coming back in hospitals, saying this one guy says, we're at capacity, I have to call my wife and stuff like that, and she bumps over this guy who randomly just blips back in. It's awesome. And then she says to this doctor, she says, "Where's my mum?" Who was Maria Rambeau, which was Captain Marvel's friend from Captain Marvel. She says, "Where is my mum?" And the lady, the nurse, or I don't know if she's a doctor, the doctor says she died 2 years ago. Because apparently the mum, Maria, had cancer, and apparently she was recovering from that, and she recovered, but apparently the cancer came back, which was pretty sad, because Maria was a good character from Captain Marvel. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Captain Marvel, but Maria was good. So that is sad to see that she is dead. But however, nevertheless, we'll move on. Now, Monica comes back, she's shocked, and 3 weeks later, she goes back to work, which she is a SWORD agent. That's inevitable. And Maria, Monica's mum, helped found SWORD, or whatever the word is. She founded SWORD, like Peggy Carter founded SHIELD, and stuff like that, which is similar, and I thought was cool. But anyway, so she goes back to work, her card doesn't work, and then Director Hayward, this guy, steps in and says, I can't remember what he says, but he says something like, "Oh, you haven't aged a day," and she says, "You've aged 5 years, blah, blah." Anyway, he takes her into his office and tells her, or no, actually, they walk through a place where they're building stuff, and he says that they talk about what SWORD is, which is Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Department, and she says something about it used to be Creation, Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Creation. I don't know how they worded it, but she said something about it being used to be called Creation. He said now it's Observation and Report. Anyway, which we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, so he takes her into her office and he assigns her a missing persons case. And she goes there in Westview with a missing persons case, and she finds Jimmy Woo there. Jimmy Woo, you might remember from Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was the guy who was obsessed with the card trick. Anyway, so they go there. She flies a drone in. The drone disappears, and she is shocked, because she's wondering what's happening. And that is the helicopter that we find in episode 2. It's in the rose bushes that crashes outside of Wanda's house. Anyway, and then Monica goes to check out what's happening with the force field, and she gets sucked in to Wanda's reality. And Jimmy's wondering what the hell's going on. And so after that, I think we cut to Darcy Lewis from the Thor movies coming in on a van, and she makes a funny joke about it. She asks what happens, and then this one guy says, "We're not supposed to talk to each other," and then everyone else says what they do, and he eventually says what he does, and she says no one cares, which I thought was funny. I've always liked Darcy, even in Thor 1 and Thor 2. I didn't really like Thor 2, but I liked Darcy in both of them, and I was sad that she didn't really come back much, but I'm glad that she's back in this. Anyway, so she goes there to investigate. I think she's like a physicist now or something. She's like got a PhD or something. She says she's a doctor, not an actual doctor, but PhD doctor. And anyway, she discovers something about Wanda's thing. Sword have set up a facility outside of Wanda's reality, and Darcy's sent there to figure out what's going on. Or I guess help figure out what's going on. And she picks up something called CMBR, which is I think that's what it's called, CMBR or something, which is cosmic background radiation or something. And basically it's radiation left over from the Big Bang, which is a real thing, which is like what happens when you see TV static. TV static is leftover radiation from the Big Bang. Anyway, and she says something about waves overlapping, boring science stuff. Well, it's not boring if you know what they're talking about, but I don't really know much stuff about science anyway. So she picks up a broadcast over the signal, and she starts playing it, and she sees the first episode of WandaVision. And so Sword all set up around that and stuff, and like set up TVs everywhere. She says she needs a TV, and they all get a bunch of TVs and stuff, and they're analysing everything. And Darcy seems pretty invested, honestly. She's she's like all of us. She's sort of like the audience in the show. Like most shows have that, or they have the character who represents the audience in the show, which they have in this show, which is Darcy. Anyway, so Darcy says to Jimmy that she has an idea where they can talk to Wanda on a radio. They do that, which is the voice that we hear in episode 2, where Jimmy Woo was talking on the radio, and I knew it was Jimmy Woo's voice based on the subtitles, and it sounds like him. But anyway, so he talks to Wanda via that, and then we see what happens there, but it just cuts, like it censors it. Anyway, and that's weird. And anyway, so it cuts to the 70s episode, where from Sword's perspective though, where they're saying 70s episode and all these TVs, and they see Monica. No, they saw Monica back in another episode that we didn't see, actually. It was a scene that we didn't see, but anyway. So now they're watching the 70s episode where Wanda's pregnant and giving birth. And so that happens, and then they see the bit where Monica mentions Pietro and then Wanda says, I'm a twin. And then I think she says he was killed by Ultron. And then, what was it? And she says he was killed by Ultron, and then Wanda gets mad, and then it just censors it. It's like you see her getting a little bit mad, and it censors it. And then Sword are like, oh my god, what's happening? Like, there's an alert, say there's a breach from the reality. And it says there's an alert that they need to check out or something. And then they all leave the TV screen, but we zoom in on it. And then we see what actually happened in episode 3 when Wanda kicks Monica out. And I thought this scene was fantastic, man. Honestly, Elizabeth Olsen really sold it when she was like, you're not my neighbour, you're definitely not my friend. Because Monica's like, Wanda, I'm just your neighbour, it's okay. And then Wanda's like, you're not my neighbour, and you're definitely not my friend, and you're trespassing here. And then she's like, I want you to leave. And you can tell she's like crazy, man. You can tell. And then she powers up and blasts her out. Which I thought the scene was so cool. The way Monica screamed, it was just cool. It was like an actual action sequence. And I really loved that bit. I thought it was great. But anyway, so that happens, then Monica comes flying out and she says, it's all Wanda. And then, boom. And then we cut back to Wanda and Vision. And Vision comes in, Wanda says, oh, Vision says, where's Geraldine? And then she says, oh, she left, honey. Wanda says to Vision, oh, she left, honey. She had to rush home. And Wanda turns to see dead Vision's body. And he says, what is it? What's wrong? And she's like shocked. She's like, and it's actual creepy as hell. Like, his eyes are fucking white, and he's got a huge fucking hole in his head. And he's all monochrome, and it's crazy. It's actual scary. And then she freaks out, and then she looks back up, and then he's back to normal Vision. And she just acts like nothing happened. And she's like, well, what should we watch tonight? And Vision's actual creeped out, like you can see it in his face. He's like, what the fuck did you just say? Anyway, it's crazy. I loved it. It was a good moment. And then, so yeah, my thoughts about this episode. I thought this episode was good. I do like the sitcom stuff, but it was good to get some actual context. It didn't really move the story forward. It was just giving us backstory and context and stuff, which, is good. didn't really move the story forward a bit, but I still loved the episode itself. Anyway, so I'm going to rate this episode an 8 out of 10. I would have given it a 9, but it's just because it didn't really move the story forward anymore, but it was great to get some context. But yeah, so that was my review for episode 4. I hope you guys liked it. If you haven't seen my other reviews, go check them out. They should all be up. And yeah, if you liked it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.